Hello, welcome to Jill's Quirky Craft, and today I'm going to talk about more of my breast cancer and the chemotherapy, the surgeries, and the 1 year that I've been free of cancer. We're not going to do any craft today. Today is July 15th, 2020. 1 year ago, I had an operation to remove my breast, a double mastectomy, and during that operation, my breast surgeon took some lymph nodes on this side, underneath the arm, and sent them through a test. The test came back clean, meaning the cancer cells did not reach my lymph nodes. I had a full 100% response to the chemotherapy, and I am in remission for 1 year. So let's take you back to November 2018. That's when I did a self-exam, and even if you don't know how to do one, just feeling is better than nothing, because that's how a lot of them are detected, is by touch. So, and I hadn't done one for a while, and I figured I might as well check just, see if it's okay. I've been really good about it, and yep, wouldn't you know it, that day in November, I found a lump on this breast right below the nipple, and it was fairly small. It was probably like that. It was really, really small. So I had my husband, back then he was my boyfriend, check. Well, and he's like, yeah, there's definitely something there. So I just started a new job, like 2 months in. So now the questions are just like, how am I going to pay for it? Am I even eligible for insurance? What kind of package can I afford? How much is deductible? I mean, you just start just getting bombarded by all these questions that just all of a sudden just flood your head. And that's normal. So the very next day, I went in and saw the HR lady, and I closed the door and I just told her, like, look, I need to get enrolled in insurance. Am I even eligible? She's like, yeah, but you're gonna have to wait until December. I'm like, okay. We waited until December. December came, we got signed up, and it was like a 3-week wait for the card. I had to wait for the cards. So once I got the card, I immediately made an appointment with a gynecologist. That was January 10th, 2019. When I was able to get in. And this is where the marathon of appointments started. I had no idea if I was coming or going, because every single day, it was almost every single day I had an appointment here, I had an appointment there, I had to go do this, I had to go get scanned for that, and do blood work for this. I mean, it was insane. January 10th started it all. Went to the gynecologist. They checked me. Hey, we found a lump. They didn't really tell me anything I didn't know. So they sent me off to my first and last mammogram session. And if you never had a mammogram before, they hurt. So they took like 30 pictures, had to wait a week, and got those back. And they're like, yeah, there's a mass in there. And it was, it was fairly big. In the pictures, I mean, of course it's blown up, but it looks like that big. After the mammogram, I had to go the very next day because they ordered a panel of blood work to be done. So the next day I went up to a blood draw place, one of the labs, an independent lab, standalone. So I went up there and they took like 5 ginormous tubes of blood out of me, sent it off. So it came back okay. Yeah, it's basically the worst thing about this whole entire ordeal before the chemotherapy, or at least leading up to seeing the oncologist, or even leading up to the actual first treatment of chemo, is all the testing and all the wait. The wait, I think, drove me more crazy. And if it wasn't for work, I probably would be in a loony bin. Honestly, I found that during the waiting process, by just working at my job and keeping busy at home and just really honestly trying not to think about it, which is damn hard, but just trying not to think about it, it really helped, at least for me. I know everybody's different, so you're gonna have your own way of coping with the way that you do. But for me, just keeping busy. During this entire time that you're waiting, I found a YouTube channel. I started YouTubing a lot of, breast cancer, different types, and I found the breast cancer school for patients, and I'll link it below. I'll link the whole channel below. The guy is fantastic, and I would recommend watching every single one of his videos, because if you have a question, more than likely you're going to find an answer in those videos somewhere in that series. The gynecologist people who sent me out for the mammogram, they also referred me to a specialist, basically a breast surgeon. They made the appointment for me. They called me up and said, hey Jill, I have an appointment for you. I had really never made my own appointments at all throughout this whole thing. I made one, and it just roller coastered from there of where I was going. Because I didn't even have to make any of the appointments. They did it all for me. I was really fortunate for that. So 8 days later, after the gynecologist visit, we see the breast surgeon. wonderful guy. His staff is great. His nurses are fantastic. I love it. He gets in and he explains, after he examines me and everything, you got a tumor. And by this time, it was double the size. And when I originally found it, it grew that quick. From November to January, it doubled the size. I could see it. And by the time February rolled around, you could see it popping up onto the skin. Like it was like a bump or something. So that's how big it was, and that's how close to the surface it was, because it went this way. So on the 18th of January 2019, he does the exam. He sits down and he says it could be this one, or this one. And I'll have to find the reference of those, and I'll put those in the caption on the screen. And if it's breast cancer, then we can have a different conversation. If it's these two, then we would just operate on you and then remove it and then keep it tapped on you just in case, if it comes back again. But more than likely it's either going to be B or C. I doubt it's going to be A. And I'm like, okay. So his nurse scheduled me in to get a core biopsy done. What a core biopsy is, it depends on which breast has the cancer in it, but since it was this one, they did a numbing needle, shot it all the way through, numbed it really super good, and they would take a needle in there and just kind of draw out samples. And it's like basically coring a tree. It's like a tube that goes in there and it just takes out layers of the tumor. I YouTubed it because I'm just neurotic that way, I guess. Curious mind wants to know, damn it, and I wanted to know, so I YouTubed it. When you go in, you have a seat that kind of reclines back with a TV monitor here with a whole bunch of buttons and stuff like that. You have like a light over you. It's almost like being in a dentist's office. So we go in there, and we're on the 28th of January timeline. So we go in there, he numbs me up really super good. He's like, I don't go lightly on this stuff. I really numb you up. That way you don't feel anything, because this isn't a pleasant thing. And I've heard a lot of horror stories from other cancer survivors that say, oh yeah, I hate those damn core biopsies. They really hurt and it was just unpleasant. With me, he numbed it up really super good. Got in there, we got the screen on, and I'm just watching the whole thing. And let me tell you, that tumor was like half the size of this bone on that screen. I'm like, holy crap, what's the size of that damn thing? You do know that's magnified like 50 times, right? I'm like, yeah, but still, look at the size of that damn thing. I made it a point personally to not have people feel sorry for me. That was just my way of doing it. It just kept everything lighthearted and cut the humor somewhere in there to keep people laughing and not, so serious. I don't want to be like so serious it was just depressing. So the biopsy gets done. So they bring in my boyfriend at the time. He sits down next to me and the doctor's over here and he's like, okay, we'll have the results in like 2 to 3 days. Do you want me to call you then? And he's like, no. Her birthday's in like 3 days. So, and I already have plans for that. And he's like, let's go ahead and make her birthday, let her have her birthday and stuff like that. Make an appointment afterwards and we'll get the results then. By this time, I really didn't tell anybody at work what was going on. I eventually did between the 18th and the 28th, I think, when I finally told somebody at work. A few days later, after my birthday, we had the appointment. We're now in February 6th to be exact. So on February 6th, we're sitting down with breast surgeon again. This time we're in the town that I live in. We're not in another town. So we're in the office. Here comes another nurse. I haven't seen her before. I haven't met her yet. Her job is to basically be a navigator of oncology stuff. Basically a cancer navigator. So if you need resources, she can get them for you, or she'll direct you to where you need to go. She was my personal oncology GPS. She knows who she is, and she knows I call her that, and I love her to death. But yes, she's great. Like GPS nurse, she just sat back there and listened to the doctor and watched how I was reacting. And as soon as the words came out of the mouth that I had breast cancer, I lost it. And it wasn't the news that made me lose it, that I had cancer, because I was bound and determined to get it over with. I wanted to beat it quickly and as hard as I could. I was mad because during that wait between the 28th and the 6th, my dog kept jumping up on me. I have a pit bull, and you've probably seen him in my videos, the white and brown dog that would run around. he would lay up on me and he would put his chest or his head right here next to my chest, and he would just go like this, bury his nose in there. And the first time that he did it, because he did it repeatedly, once he found that scent that wasn't normal, he would just constantly just hit on it. I knew it was cancer. Let's see, after we had him excused out of the room for a few minutes, they came back. I told the doctor I wasn't mad that I had cancer, that the prognosis was that. I kind of knew. And I explained to him about my dogs sniffing my chest and everything. He's like, yeah, whatever, you know. But the nurse over there, she was like, wow, that's really fascinating. I was like, damn, at least somebody believed me, you know. And once I got done wiping away the tears like I am now, I basically just looked at him like, now that we know what it is, how do we kill it? My prognosis was HER2 triple positive breast cancer. Once we found out that it was HER2 triple positive breast cancer, and HER2 is a type of breast cancer that is very aggressive. It grows quickly. And triple positive means that it's progesterone driven, estrogen driven, and it's HER2 positive. There's a receptor in there that is a protein called HER2 that it triggers. So once it gets triggered, it just goes and goes and goes, and there's really no stopping it. And that's basically how cancer cells spread. They just get the light switch turned on, and that's the end of it. Until you turn off that light switch, you got light, and it's the kind you want. That was my first MRI. I never had an MRI before. And of course, bet your butt, I YouTubed that one ahead of time. This is where it makes really pretty pictures on their end. So cancer cells usually glow like the warm spectrum of the colors, like the red, the yellow, and the orange. So that's what they were looking for, is that. We get that all done. 1 or 2 days later, you know, get the result, and they read it, and it was definitely there. It was all confined. They were looking for basically straggler cells, and maybe there were some cells that kind of wandered off and it's over here somewhere instead of being all clumped together. They were going to be, you know, socially distanced and hang out over here. None of it was there. It didn't spread. They wanted to see if it metastasized, and nothing spread anywhere in the area. It was all self-contained, and that one little tumor. Good news. So going back to the 6th of February, I forgot to mention this, but because of my rapid timeline of events that happened with my cancer up to this point, so from January 10th to February 6th, it was just non-stop appointments and waiting and, you know, tests and stuff like that. He wanted to tell me that they'd never seen a timeline this fast, and that they made me a case study, basically a poster child. On February 12th was my oncology appointment. I already talked to the owner of the business that I worked at, and she heard the name of the oncologist that I was going to see, and she's like, yeah, she doesn't have the best bedside manner, but she's good. I'm like, okay, so I'll give the lady the benefit of the doubt, you know. So February 12th, we meet with the oncologist. More needles. And the oncology doctor, she comes in, and I'm on the phone with a genetics counselor. And basically what a genetics counselor is that you answer all these questions, because my mom passed away from stomach, liver, and pancreatic cancers, like all kinds of cancer up here. They wanted to make sure that the breast cancer gene for BRCA 1 and 2 was not in my genetics. So I'd answer all kinds of questions, and she comes in, she's like, you get off that phone right now. She's going to call you back. And I'm like, what? Did you just tell me to get the hell off the phone? Seriously? Okay. I'm like, I'm gonna have to call you back later, click. So then she leaves. She comes back in again. Stays for like 2 more minutes. Leaves. Comes back in again. And I'm just looking at my boyfriend. I'm like, holy crap, is this my oncologist? How the hell are we gonna deal with this? So when she finally sits down for about 5 to 10 minutes, she's the sweetest damn thing you ever came across. I was like, okay, now that I get to sit down for 5 minutes to talk to her, not so bad. I was taken aback when she just started barking orders. So we talked to the oncologist, and we stayed with her for about 30 or so minutes, and she's really good. She's answering all the questions and everything that I needed to know. And when we were done with her, she ushered us over to where the nurses were. And these nurses are the ones that administer the chemotherapy. And they walked me past 2 rooms, and it was like maybe 1 whole room, I can't remember. It was like an L shape. They ushered us into that area, and I walked past, and there's people of all ages, not kids, mind you, but people of all ages that are sitting there with IVs up to their chest getting chemo. You know, some had scarves on their heads, some didn't. Some looked really good, some looked really ill. I started tearing up. Quite honestly, it scared the hell out of me because I knew I was going to be in that seat eventually, being hooked up to an IV, getting these hard drugs, looking like crap. It was just a matter of time. So the nurse took me back to an area and she started explaining, yeah, we're gonna have to get a port put in you, that way you can receive your chemo through the port, not through your arms, because getting stuck with a lot of needles and the chemo being so hard on the body, it will collapse the veins eventually. I'm like, okay, so I had no idea what a port was, and I asked her, and they took me over to a lady who showed me what a port was. I still have mine, and technically I really shouldn't be having mine still, but this right here is what the port is right here. And I would be hooked up with an IV needle in my chest receiving treatment with this. And you see a tube that goes up this way. And what it does, it administers it into the jugular vein of your body. So that way it immediately hits your bloodstream and it goes everywhere that it needs to go and takes out the tumor. So they got that appointment scheduled. So mind you, this is the oncology appointment on February 12th. This appointment was for Valentine's Day, 2 days later. I had my choice of Thursday or Friday. I'm like, you know what, just go ahead and get it over with. Like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah. So for Valentine's Day, I had a surgery. They had me do all the paperwork for allergies and drugs and what I was taking. I mean, we were there for like a couple hours, and they gave me a stack of paperwork like this thick of all the medication I was going to be on. So I was on 4 chemos, 2 of which were basically a targeted immunotherapy type drugs where it just hit the tumor and not the entire body. The other 2 went throughout the whole entire body, and just, it was like a blanket chemo is what it was. But it's used for multiple different cancers. So you gave me all the paperwork for that, and each one of those stacks was like this thick. I'm not kidding, it was a lot of information. Then they were talking about the steroids that you're going to be on, and the Claritin, the Benadryl, a whole bunch of other prescribed drugs that you're going to be on to counteract the effects of the chemo. So I mean, you're having a drug that's going to cause these side effects, but we're going to give you all these drugs to counteract the side effects. So I had a stack of prescriptions I had to go to my local pharmacy to get. $50 later with insurance, thank God. I had all my pills, I laid them all out, and I'm just like, there's no way in hell I'm going to remember to take all these. So I had to develop a system to do that. So I laid them all out. I got like this little pill container thing, which is very helpful. Like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Those little pill popper things. Get that. For this, you're going to have to be as organized as possible. So if you suck at organization, cancer will make you be organized. You know, after surgery, go home and get everything ready for chemo, because my first day of chemo is the 20th of February. So I'm getting blankets and stuff to read and snacks and drinks, and bring something like this if you do chemo, or if you're visiting somebody with chemo. Bring a big jug of water like that with you, especially if you're the one receiving chemotherapy, because you're gonna get, I got dry mouth and I was really thirsty, so I was down in water like left and right. February 20th, my first day of chemo. Your first day of chemo is the longest day of chemo, because that's when you get everything. When I mean everything. God, I think 6 hours. 6 hours. And one of my prescriptions, and this is a lifesaver, especially if you have a port, is lidocaine cream. Put it on your port, leave it there for 2 hours, not 1, 2. I found that works the best, because I had it on there for like an hour, and you feel the needle going in, and it's not very pleasant. So 2 hours, magical number here. Put it on there, you put a piece of plastic over it, you tape it on, and they do the rest. So I'm sitting here, I got my lidocaine on, it's been on there for an hour. I see the nurse and all that stuff. They put me through their thing, and answers. questions, fill out the paper, blah, 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 because I'm a new patient, all this crap. So I finally get to pick a chair in the chemo room. So I picked one of the chairs, and a lot of the people were really super nice. And there was a guy across from us, and like, first time? It's that obvious, huh? Yep, first time. So I still had my hair in a ponytail and stuff like that, so, or no, I actually, I had it short, I think. It was either in a ponytail or eventually got cut short. I can't remember, but I had a full head of hair. It was a little bit longer than it is now. I do remember that. And I was like, first time in, I was like, yeah. Like, okay, if you need anything, let me know. Like, okay. I had a lady over here, she was telling me about the shots in the arm. And I'm just like, God, that's not what I wanted to hear on the first day. I haven't even gotten plugged in yet, and I'm already getting shots in the arms, and just how you're gonna feel. Like, when you're new to it, it's just, they're trying to be helpful, so I'm not shaming them at all for this. But I wasn't ready for it. I wasn't ready for, oh yeah, hey, just want to let you know, conversation first. Hey, how you doing? And then hit me with that, and I was like, hey, did they tell you about the shot yet? And I'm like, no, they didn't tell me about the shot yet. Oh well, let me tell you all about it. I'm like, okay, that's what they did with that. It was great. So like I said, you have to go in with a different way of looking at it, instead of, there's a whole bunch of people that look really sad and lonely and depressed. I'm running out of adjectives. You know what I mean? It's just a mess. So I go in there and I'm just like, hey, let's get it done. We're showing the road. So you want to bring a blanket and chemo because it's freezing cold. I mean, it feels good. Like the first 15-20 minutes in, you're gonna feel like, okay, it's not so bad inside. And then as you're sitting there longer, you end up just freezing. So bring a jacket, bring a blanket, bring a pillow, bring whatever it is that you need, because the chairs, they do recline. That's really nice. So it's like a ginormous lazy boy in there with a table that you can put stuff on. And bring snacks. Bring water, bring a blanket, bring snacks, bring something to do or read, and that's about it. If you have like stomach issues, they have ginger. Like anything ginger will work. If you get ginger ale, that works just as good if you don't like to chew. So make sure you have all that in a bag. And every single time that you have a chemo session or fluids or whatever, bring it with you. And always bring the lidocaine cream, because those nurses, they're like vampires, man. They even tell you, the second you step foot in that door, we're gonna stick you with chemo. I'm like, okay. Not very subtle about it, are you? So yeah, first round 6 hours, I slept through most of it because they gave me Benadryl, and that's to help suppress, like your stomach flip-flopping and getting sick. They give you steroids to help increase the appetite and give you energy, and those are nice. Good point. They're nice. Makes you eat like a pig. So if you are not feeling hungry, even after you're off the steroids, after they kind of wash out of your system, like 2 days later, because it was on a Wednesday that I got my chemo, so I had a half day Thursday and half day Friday. So on the half day mark in the Friday, I crashed. So we're on the 22nd of February. I crashed. My boss actually had to take me home, because I was still working. I wasn't going to quit my job or take time off and stay home during this entire time. I actually worked a full-time job while getting chemo, the entire duration. So the first big dose of chemo was going to tell me exactly how everything else was going to go. Keep a notebook, and anything that is just write it down. It doesn't matter how stupid it is. I was like, how many times you had diarrhea, how many times you had bloody noses, how many times your face twitches, what part of your face twitches, more, one side twitches more than the other, your fingertips, your taste, anything, just write it down, because every time that you see your oncologist, show that to them. That way they can see what you're going through, and since they're the ones that you're basically relying on to keep you alive, if they see something weird, they'll tell you right then, like, okay, now what about this? How often has this been happening? That's basically what they're going to do. So the very next day after the large chemo dosage, Thursday, I had to go back in. I go back in and I see the doctor again. She's like, how you doing? How you feeling? Blah, 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 blah. I'm like, you know, you give me your answers and stuff like that, and be honest. And she's like, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and sit you in the room again. And we're not going to hook you up with an IV. We're just going to go ahead and flush the port. I don't even know if they even flushed the port. Even I might not have flushed the port, but they might have. Yeah, I think they did because they had to check the numbers. So, yeah, they did. They actually had to go access the port again to flush it and to draw some blood, run it through their thing to count the cells. And then if your numbers came back low, then that's when you get the shot. So my numbers came back low. So they broke out the shot, the flush, and all this other stuff, and they gave the shot. And it was really kind of weird because this arm, I hardly ever felt the shot that goes in the muscles in the back of the arm. Where this one, they did it in one time, because I was going to have them just alternate arms. That way it wasn't constantly being poked. But they did it in this one, and it hurt like hell. And you could feel the medicine going in, and it really hurt. So I told them not to do that. So we just left it on the back of this one. The medicine that they use to help with your white blood cell count, this is, I guess, a fairly recent new discovery by somebody. But if you take a Claritin, it's a regular Claritin, not Claritin D, it's a regular Claritin, even this little melt-away thing, the rapid one, that actually worked for me too. But for the sake of this video, the regular box of Claritin, take one of those either an hour or two before you get the shot, or even earlier that day, because it'll stay in your system for quite a while. That Claritin will actually help with all the bone pain that you're going to be feeling when you get that shot. I had a couple friends that had to get that shot, and they said they were in a fetal position just begging God to kill them. And I'm just like, wow, I don't want to experience anything like that, because I don't think if I actually felt that kind of thing, I don't think I could endure that much. Come out of this smiling. If somebody tells you to take something, don't argue with them, because they probably went through it, or they heard somebody that went through it and it wasn't a very good idea that if they didn't take it, that's what would happen. So if you have Claritin, you have to get the shot, take the Claritin, get the shot. It's well worth it. So I had 6 rounds of chemo every 3 weeks is when I went. It wasn't too terribly bad because, like I said, the first time was the longest, and then it's like nothing. You just get plugged up, put on your blanket, you wait for the Benadryl to take effect. A lot of times they'll hit you with the Benadryl first and then give you everything all at once. They'll give you all the hard meds after the Benadryl will enter your system. They'll just start switching it out. And some people make them hyper, some people just calm them down. It knocks me out. This is diesel. Oh yeah, and before the, I forgot to tell you, when I was doing, before the first round of chemo, I had to do an echo because the Herceptin, which is a targeted drug for the tumor, the Herceptin, and Perjeta is what I was on, but the Herceptin had the side effect of damaging the heart. So I had my very first echocardiogram on that. I'm laying in the bed, the lady's doing the sonogram of the heart, and my phone's exploding across the room. The screen just lights up with phone calls after phone calls after phone calls after phone calls. I'm like, what in the hell is going on? So I finally get the echocardiogram done, got dressed, checked out, was in my car. I called a number that was blowing up my phone. It was my breast surgeon. He said, Jill, we need to get you in again to another MRI. We found another spot in your breast. I'm like, what? So it was later that day, I think it was like 5 in the afternoon, was the time that they were able to get me in up to the MRI here. And I had another MRI done right away. Another doctor did it. Bugs are insane right now, I'm sorry. They get you in, they set you up with different trays. Basically what it was going to be was another biopsy. Set it up a little bit differently, so it took a little bit longer. About an hour, hour and a half to get through there. So I think I got out of there around 6:30, 7 o'clock-ish, I think. The tumor was up here. The spot that they had in question was down over here in a different quadrant because they quartered it. So my tumor was in this quadrant. The other one was like over here, the other spot. But it showed up blue on the initial MRI. Now remember what I told you earlier. The contrast that they did on the first one they highlight the cancer cells to be red, orange, and yellow. Usually blues and greens are like blood pools or something else, but not cancer. But there was a thing of blue down here on the imaging, and they wanted to double check it. They were just really concerned because I had such a big tumor in my breast. So I'm in there, fall asleep, they wake me up, and the guy who was going to do my biopsy, he's like, Jill, I got good news. Don't have the lump there anymore. It went away. Whatever it was, it went away. So it must have been a blood pool or something, but it's not there. So we don't have to do a biopsy. You're good. I also had a PT scan right before my first round of chemo, but I had a PET scan. So you just go in and they give you the contrast that you have to drink, and then they give you another one. Kind of makes you really warm. That took about 30 minutes. You just basically feel like you peed yourself everywhere and you're laying in it. I had an allergic reaction to the contrast. Second I sat up, I puked. That was the first time that I puked during this whole process. That was the first and only time. Broke out after I got dressed and everything. I got in the car and I was just red from the waist up. My face all the way down to my ankles was just covered in hives. I was clawing like this. I was starving because I couldn't really eat anything for this stupid test. It was horrible. Come on up here. Oh, come on. You can do it. Good girl. Good girl. Hi. I know. I know. You fuzzy. I need to brush you again. When you're done with chemo, it's awesome. I had balloons, I had cards, I had a stuffed animal, and what Sean doesn't know is I saw the balloons in the corner. Didn't think they were for me. I actually thought somebody had a birthday party or somebody brought balloons for somebody's birthday in the clinic, and they just tucked them away, and that was the end of it. That way nobody, ran into them. But yeah, I had a bunny, a card, a whole bunch of balloons, and the nurse who administered my very first chemotherapy administered my last one. You started this, I'm going to end it with you. She was very honored. So yeah, it's always a good feeling to have the very last chemo. We're still waiting for... During the time of chemo, we were getting close to the time where we had to make the decision of, do I want a lumpectomy with radiation? Now, lumpectomy is where they just take out the lump and then they hit you with radiation for X number of days for like 1 to 5 minutes. I've heard horror stories of radiation where if you weren't sick from chemo, you will get sick from radiation. Then I heard one where if you were sick with chemo, you might not be sick with radiation. So I'm like, well, which one is it? Am I going to get sick? Am I not going to get sick? Is it going to be worse than chemo or not as bad as chemo? Or is it going to be like nothing? I mean, what the hell? I had too many different stories from everybody that told me that they underwent both chemo and radiation, and they all had different outcomes. I'm just like, you know what? Screw that. We are not doing radiation. So I opted out of the lumpectomy/radiation section. The next option was a double mastectomy, no radiation. I had the option of reconstruction after the double mastectomy or a mastectomy. It just depended on how you wanted to do it. I opted for the double mastectomy because I was so small chested. If they were to just rebuild this one and not do this one, it would look lopsided, because they were trying to get with a very reputable plastic surgeon up in the town that I live in, because he's so good. He's been busy, but he's very good. He's got 5-star ratings. I've done some research, and he's very good. So that's another thing that you want to do, is do your research on the doctors that they give you, because some of the doctors that they recommend may or may not be very good, and you can always have the option of changing your doctors. We gave this guy a shot. So we go in, and it's an hour-long consultation. He shows you pictures of, if you ever went to a plastic surgeon, or if you've never been to a plastic surgeon rather, they sit you down, he sits in front of you on a stool, the little nurse lady, she gives you the big old thick photo album, lays it out on you, and he just flips through. And as you're flipping through, you'll see a before and after shot. So this is what it looks like, before, after they got done with chemo, radiation, stuff like that, and you'll see like the radiation burn on their chest. And that was one of the things that he did not want me to do, and that kind of pushed the decision to do a double mastectomy, was to not do radiation because it shrinks the skin and it makes it harder for him to reconstruct the breast. Even though my breast surgeon gave me a different explanation on radiation than what he did, that's his job, is to rebuild you, so he would know a little bit more about it. So I'm not saying one's wrong and one's right, it's just he's talking with what he knows, but you're going to somebody who's like an expert in that field of reconstruction. And I just relayed information back and forth. He kind of pushed me to not have the radiation because I'm already small, and if I had radiation, it's just going to shrink that tissue even more, making it even more difficult for me to get my breast back, or at least reconstructed. So that's why I opted for the double mastectomy. So then we discussed the implant. Now there are different kinds of implants. There's the saline solution one and there's the silicone one. And then they have the gummy bear one. Yes, it's not the candy. But they're called gummy bears because when you cut them in half and split them apart, they're just like a gummy bear. They don't go anywhere. Where if you cut a silicone one in half, just a regular silicone one, they kind of ooze out and it goes into the body, and when those ruptures, you have to pull it out. And then when the saline one ruptures, it just gets absorbed into the body and all that's left is a silicone sac that the saline was in. That's the difference between the three of the breast implants that he was discussing. Now, we went with the gummy bear option, and there's two textures. There's the smooth textured and there's like, it's almost like a sandpaper type texture to the other one, the other gummy bear. And those are the ones that have been linked to a rare cancer. So you would have to undergo chemotherapy and all that crap again. And I'm just like, no. He won't even do it because there's been so many issues with it. He won't even go with that. He's like, we're going to do the gummies. We're going to do it smooth. I've never had anything. But a lot of the questions that you find on the internet, and trust me, I gave him like pages upon pages upon pages of questions, and I asked him the biggest one, because you read on the internet and articles and stuff that 10 to 20 years from now you're going to have to get your boobs replaced because there's something wrong with the implant. That's not always the case. That is basically the window. If something's going to happen, it's going to happen within the 10 years or the 20 years of them being put in you. I've known several women that had breast implants for just getting a boob job, not necessarily a reconstruction. There's a difference. But to have a boob job and they got implants underneath the muscle, and it's been years. I mean, years. They've never had any issue with them. So that put a lot of doubts that I've had to rest. So if there was going to be an issue, I still find it. That's why you always, check yourself. You feel lumps and everything. That's why you check it so much. I mean, I'm still, every day I go like this and I feel for lumps, even though I have no tissue there. If there's an issue, right back to the breast surgeon I go. And right back to my oncologist, then we just go from there again. But so far it's been good. We had that all planned out with the plastic surgeon. Like right in the middle, the midway of getting through the chemo, we got the plastic surgeon set up with what kind of implants I wanted, and ended up going after the double mastectomy. And my last chemo is scheduled for June 6th, and when you want to do the surgery? He's like, we can do the surgery July 15th. I can anyway. I'll have to team up with him and see when he can do it, the plastic surgeon. I'm like, okay. So I get either a phone call from the plastic surgeon or the breast surgeon, I can't remember which, but the surgery was scheduled for July 15th. And again, it's a very early day. Got up at 5, was down there by 6:30. Cold as hell in that place. Oh, I was freezing the moment I walked through the door. It was so damn cold. And they do it for a reason, to keep the germs down, because germs don't like the cold. We got admitted in, did all the paperwork. My husband had to wait in the waiting room forever, for like 8 hours. It was a long surgery. It takes a while, because it's not just removing the tissues and everything. It's removing lymph nodes and getting those sent off. You have to wait for the lab to kick it back to give you the results, and then you just go from there. So there's a lot to it than just, a couple hours of doing this. And the majority of it was the plastic surgeon being there, because he's doing blood vessels and stuff like that, as well as, you know, removing everything that he needed to get done. He had to reconnect blood vessels. 1 or 2 days before the surgery, I think it was July 13th, I was in there. Let's see, the 15th was a Monday, 14th was Sunday, 13th was Saturday, it was the 12th, it was on the 12th. So July 12th, I was at the plastic surgeon, and he marked me all up with the marker. You know how they draw all over your face if you're getting a facelift? He pretty much did that on me. So I had like 2 different colors on me. We got that all done. I think we met with the breast surgeon one more time, but don't quote me on it. I don't remember, because everything was just like boom, 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 boom again. So I would have to look back at the timeline to kind of put everything in order. But and it just, when you have a timeline this quick, which mine was unheard of, that's why I'm a case study. When you have a timeline this quick, good luck trying to remember anything, because it's a blur trying to keep everything straight. Have a calendar that you can write on, and have enough space to write on, and put that somewhere where you can always look at it and keep track of where you're at. Because like I said, I had multiple appointments in a day. I had multiple appointments in a week, and I'm not kidding. I think in 2 weeks I had 30 appointments, and that's no joke. And I'm just telling you about a handful of them. So when I tell you to be organized, it's crucial that you are. Got all marked up. I saw him, and I think I saw my breast surgeon, but don't quote me on it. I can't remember if I did or not. I might have seen him on July 15th, where I had gone into this hospital and I was waiting to be wheeled into the operating room. July 15th, day of the surgery. They hooked me up. They asked me a whole bunch of questions. They get me in a gown and put this thing on my head and put these oversized socks on my feet that don't fit worth a damn. Get me wheeled in, or get me set up so I can be wheeled in. And I talked to the anesthesiologist. He's like, "Do you have any requests?" I'm like, "Yeah, just please don't kill me." And then I talked to the breast surgeon, and he's like, "Here's what we're gonna do. It's gonna take about this long, and I'm gonna test your lymph nodes, and you'll know everything when you wake up." Okay. So I got him done. He stays for like 5 minutes, and then he leaves. And then again, my boyfriend at the time, that's my dog. He comes in and sees me right before I'm wheeled out into the operating room. So he's like, "I'll see you when you get back out." I'm like, okay. So he goes into the waiting room. 5 more minutes of prepping me. Off we go down to the hallway. We get to the OR, and they have you scoot onto the other bed, lay out, and all I remember is seeing the overhead light, and I felt like a light, literally. That overhead light was not on, it was off. I remember seeing that, closing my eyes, and I woke up and I was in extreme pain. So that's how I remember the surgery. I went in, I saw a light that was turned off, I fell asleep, and I woke up in the room that I started from. And apparently I don't wake up from anesthesia very easy. It took the anesthesiologist quite a while to wake me up, and he was getting very worried. They almost actually admitted me to the hospital because they couldn't wake me up. I get wheeled out, and the anesthesiologist, he's like, "We could not wake you up. Like, I don't know what it is, but girl, you do not do well with anesthesia. We're coming back out of it. I mean, you're easy to get under and keep maintained, but bringing you out, yeah, forget about it." I'm like, "Sorry." He's like, "It's okay. I'm just glad that we got you awake before we had to admit you into the hospital," which I had 30 minutes of a window left before they almost did. I made sure I told all my doctors I'm hard to wake up under anesthesia. And apparently it took me 2 hours to wake up from the port surgery. I did not know this. I found out later, like after a couple of days, I think, of these being removed, I found out about that. Don't quote me on it. They bring me to, and you know, you're just kind of groggy anyway, and I was playing World of Warcraft during this time, and I had a daily quest, and I was worried about the mount, because you had to raise it from little cub to a full-grown cat. I was in the middle of doing that quest, and I was so worried that I couldn't get on there to do the dailies to raise this cub, because I didn't want to lose the mount. Of all things to worry about, I was worried about my World of Warcraft cat mount. And I just woke up and I'm just like, oh, my cat mount. Don't forget my cat mount. And the doctor's like, what the hell is she talking about? And Sean's like, I know what she's talking about. She has a cat that she's raising on a game. And the doctor's like, oh, can you do my cat mount? And he's like, I got your cat mount, don't worry. I'm like, okay, come on. Out like a light, I was again. Wake me up. I must have been out for quite a while, because they woke me up again. And he's like, Jill, wake up, it's time to go home. I'm like, okay. The pain was incredible. Oh, and another thing that you can't do while you're on chemo is take, every oncologist will tell you that you cannot take Tylenol, ibuprofen, Motrin, Advil, Aleve, aspirin, any of those. Anything that reduces the fever, you cannot take that when you're undergoing chemotherapy. Cannot stress that enough, because you need to have that temperature, which is why I told you about the thermometer on a daily basis, multiple times a day, and a log. Because if you don't have a temperature because you took those pills that you're not supposed to take, your oncologist is going to be very upset with you because you're masking a fever. And if you have a fever, that means you have an infection, and if you have a fever, you need to go to the emergency room right away. That's the importance of listening to your oncologist and always checking with them on what drugs that you can and cannot take. So, being that I have not been cleared by my oncologist to not take Advil, Aleve, and all that stuff for a fever and for pain reliever, because they wanted to give me Tylenol, I was arguing with them, and I told them, like, that little redhead oncology woman is going to kick your ass if you give me this drug, and I have not been cleared about it, and y'all can deal with her because I'm not getting in the middle of it. I'm like, there's no way in hell I'm going to go against her wishes and make her bad at me. So if you guys want to ask her if I can have it, go right ahead, because I'm not. Because I haven't been cleared for that yet. I was supposed to not ever take any of that, so I haven't been taking it. You're okay to take it. And I'm like, okay. If I take it and I tell her, I'm going to send her your way. And then you can deal with her little fiery attitude when she's mad at you. So that was for 10 minutes arguing back and forth whether or not I could have Tylenol. And we ended up just concluding that it was okay and that they would deal with the repercussions of my oncologist if it wasn't. After that, that's when the anesthesia was kind of wearing off. The pain was so bad, and we had to go over railroad tracks on the way home. So you had to go through the over the railroad tracks. You had to go through this little section of town, over the railroad tracks to get to the street to go over the bridge to go home. And so it was like 5 o'clock on a Monday. I'm all bandaged up like you can't believe. I have glue going across both sides, wrapped up. I'm in my clothes. I'm sitting like this, and the pain was just unbearable. I turned to Sean and he's like, are you okay? I'm like, did I just make a mistake doing this? That could have ripped his heart out, because he told me that. He's like, no, you didn't. Because that you had a double mastectomy, you don't have to worry about it ever coming back in the other one. I looked down like this because it was flat. There was nothing there. And I had tubes coming out with little bulbs on the bottom of that, and that's to help with the drainage of the fluid that your body produces when it's traumatized. And that fluid will tell the doctor how the body's responding to the surgery and how well you're healing and if there's an infection or not. So basically the surgery consisted of the removal of the breast. I couldn't save the nipples at all because the tumor was like pretty much like this. Like here's the nipple, here's the tumor. It was just too damn close to the nipple to even save it, so I couldn't save that. So they just removed them both. They cut everything out. They asked if I wanted the expanders under the muscle or over the muscle, and I opted to have him use his best judgment in what he suggested. And he suggested we would place it underneath the muscle to bring all the tissue that's left forwards. That way, if there is a reoccurrence for some reason, you're gonna see it. You're gonna feel it right away. You're gonna see it. You're gonna notice it because everything's pushed forward. I just had these plates, these like flat plates right here, and I had to go super slow with expanding. So they had to go super slow with me. That way the incisions that were glued shut, because they weren't sutured, I think they might have been sutured on the inside, but they were glued on the outside. But they had to go slow, that way it wouldn't separate and then it wouldn't get infected. I have 3 ports. I have a port here and a port here and a port here. I still have ports. I can't wait to be deported. I want to be deported so bad. So it took me from July, I had the surgery, so September, I think I had my first fill, to, God, I want to say March of this year, of 2020, because I had to go back like every month. They would fill it just a little bit, and I think they did like 25 cc's per round. What they really don't tell you online that the breast surgeon tells you is that even if you do have a double mastectomy, breast cancer can come back in the bone, the lungs, the brain, are the common areas. Unfortunately, the owner of the business that I work at, she had the same exact cancer that I did. She was a stage 3, and she beat it. She had a reconstructive surgery of a different kind. I'll do another video later on down the road about the reconstruction, stuff like that. We'll get a little bit more in depth. When they did a PT scan, I think, or a CT scan with her, they found on a cellular level that her cancer came back in her bones. Hell of a fighter. She's guided me through all the way up till the very end, and now we have a technician at work who's got colon cancer, so I'm able to take what I've learned from her and my own experience and go and help him with his. So I'm paying it forward.